So, social emotional learning. I want to talk a little bit about that today, specifically social emotional learning. Whose job is it? Well, the big news is that it's all of our jobs. The hard part is the question is always asked, when do we teach it? How do we teach it? Should we use a curriculum? And how do I get comfortable doing it? So I'd like to simplify that for you a little bit. Social emotional learning is a huge part of what we're dealing with right now in our schools with all of our kids. Our kids seem to come to us lacking some of the basic social skills and expectations that we would assume people would be getting at some point in their development prior to coming to school. What if that's not happening? If it's not, it becomes our job. You know, school is one of the places where kids have to be 5.5, 6 hours a day. They may move, things may happen in their family life, but they were always going to land somewhere in a school, which to me is opportunity. So with that opportunity, we have to think about what are the skills our kids actually lack. The mistakes we often make is we may use some consequences to correct them when they don't use a social skill that they should, like being nice to one another. You ever notice how kids are lacking a considerable amount of empathy lately? Yeah, real empathy. Like they're mean to one another and they might be even mean to the adults and they don't really see it. And so we use consequences that we hope are going to correct the behavior. But listen to this. Unless you have a reference point on how to do it differently, then any consequence we put in place that doesn't teach that skill is not going to change the behavior. And the same child is going to be doing the same things over and over, like being mean to one another or using bad language or mean to us, because they just don't have a reference point on how to behave. Here's an example. If I go to timeout or I go to in-school suspension for the day, and I'm supposed to correct my behavior, but unless somebody there is teaching me how I could do things differently, I'm relying on my own resources or my own reference points, like, oh, that's right, I learned this when I was 3, or I learned this when I was 4, or one of my teachers in 1st grade or 5th grade taught me this. If you've gone through your school career not having been taught that, you don't have a reference point. So therefore, you go back after doing your time or your consequence, and you repeat the same behavior over. So what does that mean for us as teachers in the classroom? What it means is that we have to take every opportunity we can to really reflect on the behavior of our kids and use that behavior as our social emotional learning opportunities. So let's say you have morning circle, afternoon circle, closing circle, whatever it is you do. Let's say it's the beginning of your high school English class. Let's say it's a transition to whatever class it might be. That's the opportunity to say, hey, you know what I noticed lately is we're struggling with the way we look at each other. We're struggling with tone of voice. Think about this. If you were born after 1995, then you were never part of a generation that did not experience social media or very high-tech communication. Therefore, tone of voice, body language, all of that stuff is not something that you maybe had to experiment with like some of us older folks. So with that said, it means that we have to do something called purposeful teaching. It means during those opportunities throughout the day, I actually will talk and purposely teach a skill. It's okay to say, hey, good morning, Jack. Good morning, Polly. Nice to see you. That's great for circle time for young kids. But if we're having a hard time not speaking nice to each other, then that's what we're going to be talking about during our circle. And if I'm in my high school English class and I've got some characters and something that I'm teaching in a literature lesson, then I'm going to pull out of those characters and say, hey, how about these 2 characters and how they did problem solving? What do you guys do when you're stuck against something you're not sure how to read a cue? How do you problem solve that? Every opportunity, if I'm a math teacher in the 5th grade and my kids are getting frustrated, I stop for 5 minutes and say, hey, this is frustrating. What do you do when you get frustrated? Who do you ask for help? How do you know that person will be there? And what happens when someone says, no, I'm not going to help you? These are endless opportunities that we can embed social emotional learning. And once again, it has to be purposeful. If you reward someone or give someone a praise for doing what they should do and hope the person next to them is going to all of a sudden figure out how to behave, that's not going to work if they don't have a reference point. So, social emotional learning, we can do it. It's not as complicated as we might make it up to be. Just relax and look for those opportunities. Use the kids' behavior to go into your mind and say, what skill might they lack that I could teach anywhere throughout my day? Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. I speak and consult on school behavior, and I love to help districts solve some of these problems. See you next time.